the audio loop is another process that you can find in the little library of just the processes here. So let's say you actually have some audio input, like I have here with the microphone, and I want to loop it in time. So I can just add the audio looper and drag and drop it to, let's say, this place right here. So if I drag and drop any process onto an interval, is just going to put it on the specific interval. I can also drag and drop it somewhere else, and I'll just connect it somewhere to the scenario, right? If you have a process that somehow is disconnected, like this one, and you play it, you will see that the interval is not becoming green. So if at any point you say this is weird, I've just put this process here and somehow it's just not doing anything, what you may want to check is that does the interval go green when time passes through? If not, it just means that time isn't passing through. And so for this example, I can just take another branch here, and I keep it clicked, and I just drag it to the beginning of the interval, and now I can see that it's connected again. So now if I start this, okay, so we can see that there the time was passing through. I don't actually want to have it here, so I'll go back to the first example where I've just I just put it on the middle interval here. So I'll just add it in here. Okay, this is not needed anymore. This is a looper for audio, so I just want it to just be enabled and just continue looping for as long as I decide, basically. So the first thing is to set its input. So by default, it's none. So you make sure you use this with the headphones, because otherwise it's just going to take a sound in here and just output it straight out to your speakers, and you'll have a loop. And you want to avoid this. So I'll just record the left output, which is my microphone. I'll just do a little check of the, just to see if I can hear myself through the process. Just to make sure, I'll put a little gain at the end of it, so I can just drag and drop the gain that we've used prior. I can just drag and drop it inside the same process. I can zoom a little bit to maybe put it next to it in a nice way. So to zoom, I just hold Control. It might be Command on the Mac, and I just scroll up and down, right? I can also move this little white rectangle on the top, or I can resize it to go in and out with the zoom horizontally. If I go Shift and I scroll, it's gonna zoom vertically. Okay, so these are the zoom options, right? So now I have my little gain. I'll just connect it and put the volume down a little just to make sure it's not screeching, and I'll listen to it. One. I think I can hear myself twice, so I think it's somewhat working. I don't think I need to bring it down too much. Okay, that's fine. So I can hear myself twice. It's maybe not the best example, but if I continue talking after the interval is finished, I can see that now I don't hear myself anymore, because the interval was finished, and therefore the process inside was finished as well. I want this process to just go on for as long as I want, so that I can start looping and recording and overdubbing. So what I'm going to do basically is the same thing I've done here. I wanted this interval to go for as long as I wanted before I started playing the sound. So I can just select this end state here and add a trigger. So now I can start maybe even recording a little bit. I will hear my voice being recorded, and then I can play it. I don't want quantization for the moment. Recording a little bit. So that's me talking twice. That I'm going to put my voice down a little bit. Recording a little bit. I will hear my voice being okay. So this is a very annoying example, but sorry, I didn't have a better audio input. I could have used the sound input there and maybe record and overdub that. So I was first in the play mode, then I used the record mode, and then I went back to play, and I could hear my voice again, right? If I stop the scenario like I just did, everything should be erased. So I'll start again. I'm not going to use any quantization for the moment because we're going to do the quantization manually to create a real looper that I can use with my MIDI interface right here. Okay. So, second step for me would be to be able to change those parameters dynamically, right? I want to change it when I press maybe my first note that I had prior. I want it to be in record mode. And when I press the second note, maybe I'll be in play mode again. Jean-Michael Sellerier, I think, joined us, which is our main developer. And he'll actually let me know if I'm doing anything wrong. So
I just came to check if there was no like critical bugs that you stumbled upon or something like that. Is there
not yet?
Not yet. Okay, perfect.
I'm sure I'll get one very, very soon. But no,
we're still searching for it.
Yeah. So let me go back to the looper. So this is actually something that Jean-Michael really needed for his band because he's also playing in a band and he's using the audio looper with the guitar in a sort of a traditional live way. And it's something that's very, I think, important to have in score, especially if we want to tackle live performance. I'll put the musical time back on to maybe what I want to do is record for a bar and then go back to just playing, maybe. So that's why I'm using the musical time again. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add another process to this. I'm going to do a nested scenario here because I'm going to do a small one that is just going to use the little looper, right? So to add another process here, I can just go plus, and I have the same layout here, but I have it in a little window. It's just another way of doing the same thing. I can go in the structure and I can add a scenario just by clicking on plus. Here I can see I have another scenario, right? And I can just as well create some intervals, create different branches, and I can see that they are played through time just the same way. Just for clarity, I'm going to call this the looper. What I want to do is to, in this scenario, dynamically change the state of the looper. So I want to put the looper in record mode or stop or play. And I can see that the looper here has a little input as well, just like the gain here has a little input that we were able to drag the sound from, just like in here. This input is green. So green means that this is data that wants to come in, not audio like we are using here, but raw data. And the data is basically just the name of the state. We're going to say, in, for example, the message play, and it's just going to get into the play mode. We're going to send the message record, and it's going to go into record mode. So for this, I'm going to use another device. I'm going to go back to devices here. And in the user library, I'm going to look for another device, which is the mapper. It's a very useful device and is completely customizable. But we already have a few examples. It's probably better to use the examples than to start from scratch. So I'll double click on the first mapper here. You can look on your own at the timer one is quite interesting as well. I'll double click on this one and I can see that the protocol is mapper, it's named mapper, and I can see the other code here. This one will get into a little bit more details, but just rest assured you don't have to be a programmer to use this. This is super, super simple. We'll have a look together. So now I go back into the device explorer and I can see I have a mapper and I have a node and I have a sensor. Right, these things are the stuff defined in the little code snippet. So I'll just put it here on the side and we can just have a look at it. Oh, actually, I'll probably make it a little bigger. And we can see that this is exactly the same. So I have just this function. This is just create tree. You can just copy and paste it in every example. And then the main node is just called node. I can see it's the same name here. And then I have a few children, because again, this is a hierarchy that we're defining here. So my first children is sensor, then I have sensor 2, I have name, and then I have other, right? So this is exactly the structure I have here, and I'll be able to customize all this by changing the name as I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is to change this one to looper. And looper, sorry. And for now, I'm just going to do OK. It's not gonna erase the nodes straight away. For this, you just go refresh namespace, you go back in there, and now it's called looper, right? It's just a little step. So I can see that this one name could be useful for example, because if I click on it, I can see that it is type string. So it's actually a place where I can write, for example, record. And now I see that I have a little record here. So that would be good. That's a parameter that I could use to control my looper. So what I'm going to do is take the name here, drag and drop it in the little inlet here. And I can see now if I click on the inlet or if I click on the process, I can see all the parameters of my little looper process. And I can go inside the little loop parameter and say that see that it's got my address called mapper looper name, which is this one, mapper looper name. Okay, so now I can just play my scenario. And if I just validate this again, I'll see that, oh, it didn't work because I misspelled it. Yes. Now it's in record mode. So now that's good. I can go back into play mode. And now it's in record mode. Yeah, it's playing again now. Just what I recorded. I can go back into play mode. Okay, so this is very rough. We really don't want to be writing stuff on the fly, unless it's your thing, you know, so unless you want to live code your scenario. But it's something that we may want to use because it seems to be working. It's changing the states correctly, so long as we write the name correctly. So what I'm going to do now is just a little bit of housekeeping for all the other parameters. I'll just move that around. I'll go into edit. I'll go into full mode, and I see that I don't need these ones. These are not needed. I just need the one called name. I'm actually going to rename it state because this is the state of our looper. I'll ignore everything else there. We'll give you some more documentation and you're welcome to experiment or ask some question about other functionalities that you may have in there. But you can do a lot with just this little process, and I'll just remove this as well. So now I'll just have a simple, very simple looper with a state control. I'll just add this. Once again, I'll just refresh the namespace. And now I just have the state for my looper. What I want to do is maybe say that, for example, as we had here, we have a trigger that if pressed is going to start playing something. What we can say is that we'll put another trigger somewhere, and that once it is played, it will send the message record to the looper. So I'll just take the state, which is the message I want to send. I'll just drag and drop it inside the little state right here. State was probably not a very good idea for me to use in here because it's also the name of points. So I'll change it to option. Okay. Option, add. I'll refresh this, and I'll also drag back in the option here because it has changed the name. So now I want to make sure that he really is just listening to option and not an old name that we had prior. I'm going to drag and drop this again here and click on it, and I can see the stuff that's inside, right? So in this point, I've created two namespace. One of them is not useful anymore, so I can just right click and remove this one. And in here, I want to write record. Okay, so now when I will validate this trigger, it will send this message that's inside the state, because the state will be played. And what is going to happen is going to write record here, and this inlet is listening to this address right here, so it should change states as well. Let's just see. I'll just play, and now I just click on it, and it's okay. It was waiting for a little bit because it was synchronized, and now we see that it is and it's okay. It was waiting for a little. We can see that it has recorded indeed as we expected it. So the reason that it didn't start straight away is that we are in musical time. So the trigger will only trigger every bar. Even if I press the button or if I click on it before a full bar has been played, it's going to wait till the end of the bar and only send the message once the bar is done. What I want to do is to maybe align it a bit better and say I'll record just for, I'll say 2 bars. So I can see now I have 2 bars. And then at the end of this recording, I'll just put back the option again. But this one, I'm going to say play. So it's going to record, wait for a little bit, 2 bars, and then it's going to go back to play mode, right? And to make sure that it starts off by just playing and not recording, I can maybe initialize with a play option. And this place right here would be a good place to initialize, because whenever I'm going to start my scenario, I know that this state will be played anyway, right? So I can just drag and drop the option here. And in here again, I can just go play. And so I know that it's initialized properly. I've made a mistake. Here it is. So we are, let's say that we are in stop. As soon as I play the scenario, it's going to go back into the proper settings. So let's see. There, it's in play, so nothing happens. I will start, I will click on the trigger. Let's wait for a bar. Okay, now it's in record mode and I can record for a bar. Okay, now it's in record mode and I can record for a bar. Okay, now it's in record. Okay, so it's recorded exactly 2 bars of me speaking, which is not the most musical groove you probably heard, but we show that we can go from one state of the looper to another. And then what we want, of course, is to go back to the previous state to be able to relaunch this little system here. So first of all, we're going to connect it to another one of our keys here. So I won't have to click on it. I can just use the button here. So I'll use the 39. I'll just drag and drop on the trigger. So now I just play and I click on the note and paf, it's recording. I said paf and paf, it's recording. I said paf. Okay, so that works, but that works only once. I actually don't need this thing right here. If I want to be able to have this process repeat itself, there is another little interval. It's a very new interval. It's something that was just recently added to Score. It's called a transition, and it is an interval that has a special rule, is that it's got no time of its own. It's an instant interval, but it's able to go back in time. So at the end of the little interval here of 2 bars, I'll just use the little red plus here, and I'll just draw what is called a transition back to the beginning. And now I can just, for clarity, I can maybe move this around a little bit. I'm going to talk at the same time as playing, so I'll put the volume down a little bit. So now I play, I press on the note, it's ready, 1 bar has passed, it's starting to record, and then it's going to go back to the beginning. It's starting to record. But it's not recording until I click, I validate the trigger again. So that's what I'm going to do now. So it's going back into record mode. And now I'm going to do now. So it's going back into record mode. I have a looper. I'm going to do now. So it's going back into record mode. And finally, I can add another word just to close it up. I can add another word just to close it up. Okay, so now we have a very, very basic looper that just changes states to a very simple structure, but that shows what a relative representation of time allows. So basically, if we think of timing, this is not just a looper where you just press this button, do this, press this button, do this, and this. We think of it in terms of time. So we have first an interval that is just waiting for the first time that the record will be enabled. We are waiting for it with the flexible time as we mentioned. Once we enter it, we wait for a certain period, and as soon as we're finished with the 2 bars of recording, we go back in time into the state where we were waiting for another record to be enabled.